Dr. Snow, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Luli Castro, Swiftland Executive Director. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this morning's webinar, Linked Data, what is it? How does it relate to RDA? We have a wonderful learning opportunity ready for you this morning with Dr. Karen Snow. Dr. Snow is an assistant professor in the Graduate School of Library and Information Science at Dominican University in River Forest, Illinois. She received her PhD in Information Science in 2011 from the University of North Texas, where she taught cataloging courses primarily online from 2006 until 2011 for the Department of Library and Information Sciences. She previously worked as a cataloger in the Rare Book Room, University Archives, and the Technical Services Departments at the University of North Texas. She currently teaches beginning and advanced cataloging courses at Dominican University, both face-to-face and online. And I would like for you at this time to welcome Dr. Snow and enjoy her webinar this morning.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Luli. Thank you. Okay. Good morning, everyone. And yes, today we will be talking about linked data and what this has to do with RDA, if anything. So, as you guys know, this is the third of our series of webinars. The first one, talking about Ferber. Second one, RDA specific, RDA basics. And we're building now on that. So I'm assuming you guys now have a basic understanding of those topics, and now we move on to linked data. And then our final webinar will be next month on BibFrame, the Bibliographic Framework Initiative, the replacement for MARC. But in order to understand that, I feel it's important for you to understand the role that linked data plays in that development. So today, let me forward the screen, I am going to talk about what is linked data? What am I talking about when I say linked data? The role that RDF, that's Resource Description Framework, not RDA, Resource Description and Access, two different things, very similar sounding but not the same. And then the RDA vocabularies, so how all these kind of tie into the development and implementation of RDA. So as always, feel free to type any questions that you have in the chat box as I'm talking. I'll kind of monitor that chat box. Otherwise, I'm hoping that we will have some time at the end for any questions or concerns that you have, or any, if you want me to elaborate anything, clarify anything that I've discussed. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so okay, so linked data, semantic web, as I'll explain in a few slides from now. Oftentimes these are used interchangeably, even though, from the perspective of a computer science scientist, it may be slightly different. But for our purposes, the semantic web uses the linked data technology to work. And by the way, I meant to say this at the beginning, as Luli said, my background is not computer science. So I am going to approach this from the perspective, in the background of a cataloger. So please don't feel like I am some sort of, technology guru that has, the inside scoop on this stuff. I learned all this stuff from, perspective of a cataloger, and that's how I am going to approach this as well and teach you guys about this. Also, I'm going to assume, for the sake of this presentation, that most of you guys, maybe not all, but most of you guys know little to nothing about this. So if some of this stuff seems really basic, or you know this already, bear with me. Hopefully there'll be things that you don't know that I will teach you. So all right. Okay, so semantic web / linked data, for our purposes, essentially the same thing. The current web is a web of link linked documents. Okay, so when you click on a link, you type in, the HTTP blah 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 blah. It takes you to a web page that has, or a document of some sort that may have other bits of data, metadata there on that document. Okay, like either web page or a PDF or whatever. It is unstructured data that we're connected by hyperlinks. We're using hyperlinks to connect other documents together on the web, right? And it's suitable for human consumption. We can see that there. Makes sense, and queried by matching keywords and documents and using relevance ranking algorithms to find things. So that is not the approach of the semantic web. It really wants to approach data and metadata, for that matter, as a web linked together. So structuring our data and metadata to carry semantic meaning. Okay, so because computers are stupid, okay? They know what we teach them to know, essentially. So they may understand the syntax of the URL and everything, but maybe not the meaning necessarily of the website. So it wants to make the web more like a database, making queries like a database that's suitable for machine consumption rather than necessarily human consumption. Ultimately, the product of it will be for human consumption, but it will be easier for computers to read and act upon the data we construct. Okay, and this may seem, once again, kind of obtuse right now, but I promise I will get into more of what I mean by this. That's the point of today's webinar, right? Okay, so first of all, I kind of threw out, syntax, semantics, and so forth. Let me first of all explain kind of what I mean by that. And first of all, this is from a YouTube video. It's only like a few minutes, like 5 minutes long tops. It's Manu Sporny, Introduction to the Semantic Web, which, if you want more of the semantic web linked data, after this, I would highly recommend starting with that YouTube video, and he just kind of breaks it down in a very easy to understand way. But anyway, so this is a little, screen capture from that video where he talks about the difference between syntax and semantics. Okay, so here he's showing, even though the syntax of this "I love technology" changes. So if it, at the beginning he had "I love" written out, LOVE technology, and then marked out that and put a heart. So this, even though the syntax has changed here, he's replaced love written out with a heart symbol. So the syntax has changed, but the meaning, the semantics have not. It means the same thing ultimately. It's just we changed the structure of the sentence, the words, the symbols, and so forth. And so that's really what we're talking about with the semantic web. That we may be we're using syntax, but we are not necessarily putting our data or structuring our data in a way so that computers can act upon the meaning of that data, if that makes sense. So Tim Berners-Lee is, just like, I guess, the inventor of the World Wide Web. He also is kind of the main person behind the linked open data movement. He says, at this w3.org website, the semantic web isn't just about putting data on the web. It is about making links. So your bells may be going off in your head. You're like, oh, this is kind of like Ferber in a sense. So it's about, Ferber is very big. The main thing behind it is, structuring our data and ensuring that, the entities have, strong relationships to one another, that we enact, we ensure that there's the structure there that shows that there are relationships between the entities. So kind of same thing, same basic idea here. Making sure that we pinpoint, okay, this is the data, and this is the relationship between one piece of data and another. So that a person or machine can explore the web of data. Okay, so with linked data, when you have some of it, you can find other related data. So in other words, linked data allows us to build a web of linked data rather than a web of linked documents. And when you think about it, books, websites, DVDs, whatever, these are, quote unquote, documents that may have lots of ideas, people, dates, lots of different things associated with them, right? So there may be, videos and various, text and such on a website. So linked data will hopefully connect all of those bits of data to one another throughout the web and not just the document as a whole. Okay, so hopefully that we won't have the same audio problems this time as we did last time. So Kathleen, thanks for saying that. Once again, this is, and I forgot to put the citation here, I apologize, but once again, this is from the Manu Sporny video talking about how computers now can understand the syntax of a website. So they get, the HTTP, in this case, ICANN has cheeseburger, so they say, okay, this is that website, but they know nothing about it other than maybe how we tag it, but even then they don't really understand the meaning of that. Part of the purpose, the goal of the semantic web is to kind of teach, in a sense, our systems what the data mean, at least to us, what it means to us. Make those, once again, kind of create a structure so that they say, oh, okay, this website is a humor website. Maybe these other humor websites, or at least these parts of these humor websites, will be of interest to the person looking at this website. So it's kind of, in a sense, kind of teaching the computer the semantics of our data and our metadata. So in order to do this, we need a shared structured format that linked data semantic web applications can query. Okay, so kind of like Ferber is the conceptual model behind RDA. It allows that structure there within for our RDA rules. RDF is that for linked data. It provides this shared structured format that we use in order to create linked data and ultimately a semantic web. So we're going to look at RDF, and because that's really kind of the key here, is really understanding RDF to see kind of how linked data is supposed to work. Okay, and once again, that is RDF and not RDA, different things. Okay, okay. So RDF structures metadata as statements. Okay, statements composed of a subject, a predicate, and an object. This is also called a triple. Okay, it's the same thing. When someone refers to a triple, that's what they mean, these RDF statements. And every statement should have these three components, okay, a subject, a predicate, and an object. Sometimes, subject is referred to as the resource, and predicate the property, and object the value. But generally it's, subject, predicate, object. And each of these, the subject, the predicate, and the object, should be unambiguously identified whenever possible. Okay, so, and you may be thinking, okay, this is kind of, intuitive, but trust me, this is what the systems need to better act upon our metadata. So here's an example. So the subject here, Moby Dick, the work Moby Dick, has the author Herman Melville. Okay, that is one triple. That is the subject, predicate, object here. And this is, one of many that we can say. We can have, Moby Dick, the book, has a publisher, whatever, has a publication date or whatever. It was, originally published, whenever. Okay, we can actually make many, many different statements about these works, as well as Herman Melville, for that matter. So, and it's usually always kind of represented in this way, where you have, like the circle and then the subject, and then the predicate, using an arrow to show that, this subject has whatever object, okay? And once again, this may seem really obvious. You're like, okay, well, we already have this information in our records. Why do we need to do this? What's the point of, structuring it like this? Well, once again, we're structuring it in a way that machines can better act upon our data. Now, I'll get into this a little bit more when we talk about, MARC and the future of MARC and BibFrame and everything, why this is better than our current way of structuring our data, okay? Right. So taking that, once again, one thing, once I mentioned before in a previous slide, is that we want to, as much as possible, make these as unambiguous as possible. And the best way to do this, at least currently, is to use URIs, Uniform Resource Identifiers, in place of the more kind of the human-friendly way of writing this out, like Moby Dick. Okay, yeah, we can read that, but it's better for computers to have these unambiguous identifiers representing these, people, concepts, works, whatever, relationships. Even in better using URLs, which is a type of URI, a specific type of URI, Uniform Resource Locators. That's what, the HTTP, okay, blah, 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 blah. That's a URL, okay, we are all aware of that. We are here using the HTTPS. So So yes, so that is one of the criteria of a good linked data environment is using the URLs in place of the actual terms that we are used to seeing. So let's take my little Moby Dick statement and convert that to URLs. Okay, so what I did, and by the way, note that this is not what the user would see on their end, okay? So that we would, could be converted to display labels, so it would be more human friendly. But for the computer, this is easier for them to understand. So here I replaced Moby Dick with the uniform title, the URL for the uniform title, for a preferred title of the work in RDA speak for Moby Dick. So here it's the same thing. I'm just using this URI to represent Moby Dick. Then I converted this has author. I'm just using for the sake of the example, I'm using Dublin Core element for creator here, but you can, depending on whatever metadata scheme you're using, you can use whatever you want. And I'll give you an example from RDA here at the end. But here I just use Dublin Core to represent, has author, has creator, and then I replaced Herman Melville with his the URL for his authority record, essentially. So these are all for this id.loc.gov. It's kind of the same, like from the the LC authority file, right? So so here, yeah. So I was able to replace each part of this triple with a URL. Okay, so that in a linked data environment, that's ideal. That's what we want to try to achieve. And with resource description framework, I mean, we can make all sorts of triples that go on and on and on to show the different connections there are, between works and people associated with the works and everything else, if possible. So here, another example: West Side Story, musical. Have these creators, and we can be more specific too. We don't have to just say has creator. We can say, so Arthur Lawrence. So this is actually based on the book. I guess he wrote the book for the American musical. Leonard Bernstein, the music for this work, and then Jerome Robbins. I think that's conception and choreography by Jerome Robbins. But we can add more and more. This is just kind of a basic example of how RDF is supposed to work. Just choosing a few of these, we can kind of say, okay, it has all these creators, and we can also say, okay, the West Side Story is based on Romeo and Juliet. That has the creator William Shakespeare. We can also say, all this other stuff that we can say William Shakespeare has birthplace, Stratford-upon-Avon, England, and go on and on and on, and make as many connections as we need, okay, using these triples, okay, using these statements to say very clearly to our computers, look, we have this work, West Side Story. It is based on Romeo and Juliet, which has the creator William Shakespeare, okay? Once again, all this information, usually, maybe not every single one, every single bit that I'm showing you, are in our current bibliographic records and our current structure, but it's not structured in this way, okay? It takes a lot more work, I guess, on the system side to make these connections. This is easier to give the semantic meaning of this stuff to a computer by doing it this way. So links of data, not necessarily links of documents, okay? All right, in this way, if we want to find, all the works on which Romeo and Juliet is based, so the basis is Romeo and Juliet, all the works that are kind of, related to Romeo and Juliet in some way, it'll be easier for our systems to know that using these statements, these RDF statements, okay, that we have put together. And once again, this is stuff that, we kind of have to make these connections. But once we make them, then it'll be a lot easier to make further connections and so forth in other relationships. So, and once again, this is in a sense similar to what we were talking about with Ferber, the importance of identifying exactly what the entities are, like the works, the people, the concepts, and the relationships to one another. Okay, that's a big part of this as well, obviously. So, and that's also going to be the basis, once again, that we'll talk about more in the next webinar, of BibFrame, the Bibliographic Framework Initiative, that's supposed to replace the encoding standard MARC with BibFrame. So they want to create a new encoding standard based on linked data concepts, kind of taking the components of the MARC record and using probably a different encoding standard, probably XML based, and then replacing much of what we have in there with URLs, okay, with URLs, so that we don't have, these static records. It'll be more dynamic. That way we have just kind of in a sense, kind of a universal web-based authority record that we can use, that everyone can see, that'll if we change things on the page, it'll, change things automatically in our records. Some of you may be like, that sounds horrible. I don't want people changing my data. And, there's ways to kind of control that, obviously. I mean, which, will probably be worked out. But let's see. Okay, so Dharme said, what would the ID for the title, like name authority, is for names? Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I understand your question. Oh, okay, so sorry, going back, I think I understand your question. So you're saying, like when we have a title, for example, like Moby Dick, what would we use for the ID? What URL would we use for? Okay. I just want to make sure I understand your question, which is a good one, is because it is kind of difficult to wrap your head around. Because we can think of, Herman Melville, okay, yeah, he has an authority record. Bam, we have a URL right there that can just, that points to his authority record. What would we do for titles? Well, here what I chose was the uniform title authority record for Moby Dick. Now, granted, not every single title has an authority record, for the uniform title, or like I said, under AACR2, preferred title of the work under RDA. But that can change. I mean, we could, in theory, especially in a Ferber RDA environment, have work records, right? We were talking last time about how probably in a Ferberized catalog we'd want to have work records, expression level records, manifestation, and so forth. Here it would just be a matter of creating a URL for the work as a whole, and then that would be what would represent the work. I hope that answers your question, which is a good one, because it's kind of hard to fathom how all this will work in practice, which I'm hoping to get into here in a second. But here, this is ultimately what a BibFrame is working with. They're working from the standpoint that they want to use linked data and RDF as the basis for what they're doing. So, and this is already being done in the real world, quote unquote. This is actually being done, linked data using RDF. And so here, for example, if you Google William Shakespeare, what you see on the right-hand side is not a static page. It is the Google Knowledge Graph. It is a dynamic, quote-unquote, page that's made up of several links from multiple sources. So it's pulling, like the information about William Shakespeare, when he was born, when he died, various other things about him from other sources, okay, using RDF, okay? And that's kind of how I think, in the library where we're envisioning how things will probably happen, is that we don't have to continue to type things out like we're typing cards. We'll use URLs instead to represent people, works, concepts, corporate bodies, whatever. Then we can just kind of change things on one page, and then things will kind of be updated accordingly, okay? Which once again kind of brings up a host of other issues that I'll kind of talk about a little bit here. But yeah, so there might be a little bit less control there, but it may just depend on the sources that you use, okay, which is what I'm going to get to in just a second. So linked open data movement, 4 main rules for the linked open data movement, okay? You want to try to use URIs, or, in our case, for the most part, you'll use URLs, okay, specifically HTTP. So use URIs for names of things. Use HTTP URIs so that people can look up those names. And when someone looks up a URI, provide useful information using standards, so RDF, what we were just looking at in Sparkle. So that's the Sparkle's the Sparkle protocol and RDF query language. So it's a query language so that the databases can be queried. So don't worry about that. It's Can look that up more in Wikipedia. But anyway, so using specific standards for doing so, okay, that helps us kind of all be on the same page, and systems have it easier in understanding what we're doing, and include links to other URIs so that they can discover more things. Okay, so we want to try to make as many connections, as many links as possible to the various things, so that people can make connections between one thing and another. Okay, so so those are the 4 basic rules for a linked open data movement environment. Okay, right. So you may be thinking, once again, you may be, okay, this all sounds fabulous in theory, or maybe you're not thinking that, but I think it sounds great in theory. But at the same time, we have to be practical. We have to figure out, okay, well, how is this actually going to work, considering our current environment? Okay, which is very different from that, right? For the most part, right now, our systems are not set up to do this. We use MARC, which no one else outside the library world uses. That's part of the problem with doing this is because we don't, have an encoding standard that everyone else uses, like XML, HTML based. So how do we ensure, first of all, that our data is accurate and authoritative, kind of what we were talking about before, or at least I was talking about before? How are we going to make sure that, someone's not just going to go to the William Shakespeare, authority record on the web and just kind of put whatever they want in there? Well, like in Wikipedia or something, but we don't have to use Wikipedia for our source. I mean, we already have some well-respected sources that we use, right, for our authority data, like LC authorities, the Library of Congress authority file, and their, subject headings. There's VIOF, the Virtual International Authority file, which is essentially kind of a compilation of all the authority files for the national libraries around the world. We have WorldCat identities. So, we have our OCLC, we have our LC, which for the most part we consider to be authoritative sources. So we can utilize them, as we do now, for our more, authoritative data that we can kind of rely upon, hopefully. And be more, permanent source of data as well. And they already have this, we have our authorities.lsc.gov, but they also have this service for the linked data environment, id.loc.gov. So here, for example, it's just, the authority record in LC authorities for William Shakespeare. All of these contain this, permalink, which has the HTTP, URL here. We can use that. Here's just a screenshot from VIOF, the Virtual International Authority file. They also have the permalink for that page. So there's actually quite a few out there. There's quite a few sources we can use to represent, these people and works and concepts and so forth. You may just kind of have to decide. We can decide either at the local level or as a community of catalogers how we're going to do this, what we're going to use. Which, then begs the question, okay, how can we truly be linked when we have different URIs for the same thing, right? So it has the same topic and name, okay? So I just told you that we have, all these different URLs for, whoops, kind of got cut off here. Sorry, one of the URLs got the HTTP, the last one. But anyway, so like, the first one being from, Library of Congress, then VIOF, then, there's Wikipedia, right? We could use Wikipedia if we want. And then, these are all the URLs that represent William Shakespeare. Sorry, I can fix that in the, I don't know how I got that cut off. Anyway, so how do we do this? If everyone's using a different link for William Shakespeare, how can we truly be linked? Well, there are ways around it. Well, first of all, like I said, we could kind of decide, as a community that, look, we'll use the Library of Congress, authorities to represent these different people, if at all possible. Also, we could use other standards to do this. Okay, one is, and I won't get too in depth with this with the ontologies, but one is this thing called OWL. Okay, the Web Ontology Language. It's a vocabulary extension of RDF, where we can actually, they have this called, it's a same as element where you can actually say, look, here's this thing, like in this case, so Mike's favorite wine, and this is the same as this. Okay, so we can say, okay, so William Shakespeare, this URL is the same as this one essentially for this one person's name. Okay, so I know that, and once again, I'm not going to get into the super details of this, but once again, it's a way that we could use to then kind of ensure, link these multiple sources together to say, look, yeah, these all are, linked to the same person in that sense, or same concept. And we have multiple sources. I mean, I think for many, authors and things like that, we might not have this much of a problem as we do for like Shakespeare, but this is, once again, we could use this OWL in conjunction with, RDF and our new encoding standard to ensure that these multiple sources are kind of linked together as well. And then finally, what do we do when there's nothing to link to, right? I mean, so far I've been kind of using very popular examples of, William Shakespeare and Herman Melville and Moby Dick, which, okay, yeah, they will have authority records and various other sources on the web that we can use for identifiers. But what about, Joe Schmo or like me, for example? I like to use in my classes, an example of me. And here, it's just a photograph of my daughter at Halloween. She's a witch eating her cookie. So here, digital image, SN, blah, 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 blah. So that's, I guess, in a sense, a URI, right? That's that many digital photographs will automatically be, your unit identifier will be generated when you take it. You say has creator me, but a lot of us don't have authority records, right? Like I don't have an authority record. I've published some things, but nothing to generate an authority record. So in this case, how do I do that? How do I make sure that this triple is best represented on the web if I don't have anything I can point to? And I came, this example, I can kind of just use, Facebook, for example. I can say, well, Facebook is my authority record in a sense, but that, I don't know about that. There are ways around this. I mean, I figured that once we kind of get more into the environment, we can kind of figure this out and to a certain extent. But just like now, we create, local authority records, right? When we have an author that we use at our local library that's not an LC in the authority file, right? So we already generate, local authorities in a sense. So we could do the same thing in a linked data environment. We could create, maybe a local URL for a particular author that then can be used by other people on the web, okay, if possible. So, so we don't necessarily have to use, their Facebook page to represent them or anything else. Or there are ways to do this. So. But yeah, otherwise it's going to be hard to kind of represent everything. Obviously, not everything has an authoritative place on the web. So yeah, so maybe not necessarily everything can be linked. Okay, so hopefully that helps kind of with your basic understanding with RDF. I'm going to switch gears a little bit now, and I promise I'll kind of come back to where we just were. But I want to take a slight detour here to RDA vocabularies to kind of tie things back to RDA, because that's really kind of the main theme of these webinars, right, is to kind of talk about RDA and things related to RDA. So one thing that the JSC, the Joint Steering Committee, is doing along with some partners is to develop what's called RDA vocabularies, okay? And this is their effort to register RDA elements and values to expose them for use on the web in a linked data environment, okay? So it's taking, those elements we talked about with RDA, how it's set up according to, Ferber elements and attributes and so forth. So they want to actually register those elements and many of the controlled values they provide and provide URIs for those, okay? And they've actually just recently, literally like this month, registered this www.rdaregistry.info, the RDA element vocabularies. They have for a while now, for several years, they had this one website, the the rdvocab.info, the RDA vocabulary. So it had both the elements and the values on both websites. But for some reason, they've decided to put them on separate websites. I'm still not entirely clear exactly what they're trying to do here. Presumably they're going to put everything on one website eventually, but at least for now it's on kind of two separate websites. So Let me kind of show you what I mean. Let's start with the RDA element vocabulary. So these are just like the elements like, work, expression, manifestation, item, title, the names for the actual element, the element names, rather than the values that we place. So title proper being an element, Moby Dick, the value. Okay, so if that makes sense. So here, this is that website, the RDA registry.info. Where you can kind of click on these links to get to a page that has the different element sets. So the specific elements divided into the Ferber groups, like 1, 2, and 3, groups 1, 2, and 3 entities, the relationships, and the roles. So here is, once you click on the RDA manifestation property. So if you go back to that page I just showed you, you clicked on manifestation, it'll show you something like this. Okay, so where you have, has carrier type. We talked about last time how in RDA they introduced that, content, media, and carrier types, the 336, 337, 338 fields in MARC that replaced the GMD. Okay, so this is, has carrier type. So you can see here, the type, and then the URI. So it actually gives you, okay, this is the URI associated with this property, essentially. This has carrier type, this element. Okay, so there's that. So the different elements, as well as there's the value vocabularies as well. Kind of how they describe this is a little confusing because they have, like the element sets here, then the RDA vocabularies on this page, which is actually the values, which I wish they'd kind of be a bit more clear what they're talking about. But these are actually a little bit different. So we have the elements, and as you can see here, they actually have, RDA element sets deprecated. That takes you, that's for the RDA registry info, what I just showed you. So all the element sets have kind of moved there, but the value vocabularies are actually still on this particular website, which is the rdvocab.info. I haven't, that URL here in this little box here in the upper right-hand corner, rdvocab. And here, if we kind of just stick with the carrier type example here, if we click on underneath where that says RDA vocabularies and kind of go down to where it says RDA carrier type, if we click on that, it'll take us to a list of the controlled terms that RDA says that you should use, if possible, for the value for that element. So if you click on carrier type, we get this kind of a similar page to what we were looking at before, but it contains the different values. This is straight from RDA. Okay, so if you actually go to the rule for the carrier type, it lists out all these terms that you should use for that particular element. Okay, so like aperture card, audio cartridge, audio cylinder, and so forth. Okay. So once again, there's a URI provided for that specific value. Okay, so instead of actually writing out carrier type, and for a book, it's what volume, I think. So for books, the carrier type value is volume. Instead of writing out volume, you'd actually use the URI instead. So let's look at examples. So I know that it helps me at least to go through examples to really kind of, solidify what we're talking about, because a lot of the time it's just like, you can show me like a zillion websites, but that means nothing to me. So let's look at an example. So we have here a book, The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien, okay? I won't go through everything here, but let's just, once again, for the sake of the example, the carrier type for this is volume. So for books, we have to do the content, media, and carrier type as well, which is text for the content type, unmediated for the media type, and then carrier type is volume. Okay, this is from RDA Rule 3.3. So if we take this, we can put this in a triple, like we did before, like with Moby Dick. We could say, this work, Fellowship of the Ring. Once again, I use the uniform title for this to represent this work, Fellowship of the Ring. Here, yeah, you can see the uniform title. It has a carrier type, volume. Okay, so here's kind of made up of multiple of the triples. So, well, it's actually one triple, sorry. So we have, the work essentially has carrier type as the predicate, and the object is volume, the value, okay? Hopefully everyone's still with me. Okay, so we have this triple representing just the carrier type by itself. Okay, we can make zillions of triples for this one book, but we'll just stick with this one triple for now. So we have that one, and I'm going to replace that. I'm going to replace all of that I just did with a URL representing each part of that triple. So here, the first one, once again, I just pulled out the the URL for the authority record for Fellowship of the Ring, that uniform title for Fellowship of the Ring. Then from that RDA registry, I pulled out the element, so has carrier type. So if remember, I showed you that slide where we had a URL that represents has carrier type. So that predicate, that relationship between the one thing and another. And then I replaced the carrier type volume with its specific URL. So this one at the very bottom in purple, that equals volume. Okay, at least in this realm, in this realm it does. So once again, this is taking our RDA data and kind of doing what we're supposed to do in a linked data environment and converting it into URLs if possible. So yes. So you may be kind of like, whoa. I mean, this is kind of a whirlwind tour. So I don't expect you guys to just kind of have everything completely clear in your mind at this point. And wow, I kind of went through it a bit quicker than anticipated. Sorry, hopefully it wasn't too quick. But here's some recommended reading if you want to learn more about what I have. Like at the bottom I have that Manu Sporny video, which once again I encourage you guys to watch. Karen Coyle I'm a big fan of her. She's really good at taking these really complicated and kind of computer information sciencey stuff and talking about it in our language, in the language of the cataloger, and really making it understandable to us. So if you can, I would highly recommend, especially this first one, this Understanding the Semantic Web Bibliographic Data and Metadata, and it's a library technology report, just from a few years ago. Really anything from her is fabulous. And once again, I just kind of chose, I could have chosen lots of different things, but I tried to choose things that I felt were really kind of would speak to a cataloger, speak to someone working in a library and how they kind of think about their data currently, and then kind of looking at it from the perspective of a linked data environment. So yes, and you guys will get the slides of this. I've given Luli and all them at Swiftland the slides for this. You'll get the PDF, and also this is recorded, and hopefully the recording actually will work this time. So you'll have a recording of this as well to refer back to as well. And I'm here too. If you have any questions, you can email me, obviously, and I can try to help clarify. And also we have some time here to talk if you want. But just before I stop yakking on, remember, this is the third of 4 webinars, so the fourth one being next month, so the end of next month, February 28th, where we're going to talk about the future of MARC, kind of taking what we've learned so far and looking at that through the lens of our encoding standard MARC and its replacement BibFrame and their relationship to RDA as well. And then finally, in case you guys forgot, it will actually be a in-person full-day workshop. I will be traveling to the lovely sunny Florida and getting away from this horrendously cold weather in Chicago and so much snow, and going to Florida in May 8th, Thursday, and talking more about all this stuff. So yes. So any questions? Once again, I can go back to any of the slides and try to clarify anything if you guys want to clear, if you're the clarification or questions, etc. We got plenty of time, which is nice. Marcella, that Luli would probably be the best one to add. I'm assuming what Fort Myers, wherever you guys are, Swiftland is located. I'm assuming, but I could be wrong on that. So I'm not entirely certain about the logistics of it quite yet. So maybe Luli can speak to that. Okay, so in terms of how we're going to do this, and sort of Betty's question, like new software, for example, yes, I mean, yes, we're probably the vendors, the software vendors that we're currently using, they're going to have to evolve. We're going to have to use some new software, and there will be, just like we currently use, templates to input our data. I'm sure that we're not going to have to do kind of hard code a lot of this stuff. Presumably, once again, we're moving to XML. We won't just necessarily have to be looking at the XML coding to do all this. So we'll kind of probably be using some of the same templates that we're using now, but just kind of adapted in order to, accommodate this linked data environment, having the URLs and so forth. And yeah, and Nancy, absolutely. I mean, I completely sympathize. This is really hard to wrap your mind around. But fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, that's at least in the mind of these standards creators. This is the future. Okay, so I'm not saying that this is 100% going to happen for us. What I just showed you, the linked data environment, the RDF, but our the people who are creating our standards, so like the JSC, who's creating, RDA, the people who are developing BibFrame, they were commissioned, by the Library of Congress, is coming out of the Library of Congress. They, in their minds, they see this as the future, and so therefore they're developing their standards based upon what I just talked about, based upon the linked data environment and RDF. Okay, so. Okay, and Nancy, some online classes to learn this. Keep an eye out. Are you on like AutoCAD and other cataloging listservs? Okay, then you might want to do that. You may want to get on AutoCAD because I see there's this company called Library Juice. They have this Library Juice Academy. Then they have let's see, hold on, let me try to find the URL for AutoCAD real quick. Hold on, and I can post it here. It's a cataloging discussion list. And for those of you who are on it, you may just be like, oh no, don't tell her about that, because it can be kind of a bit hot and heavy sometimes with people talking. But it's a cataloging discussion list. Here's the URL. It's for AutoCAD. You go and you sign up for it. Okay, so you subscribe to it. Whoops, not Auto, sorry, AutoCAD. Meow. And you sign up for it, and you get emails. People post. They ask questions. Cataloging related questions. But there's more. They also talk about, have job postings and announcements about webinars and various courses you can take to learn more about this stuff. So if you're not on that, I would highly recommend it. Like I said, that this Library Juice, let me type it. So Library Juice is a company that has a lot of, and RDAL, thank you, Darmeen. RDAL is also a good source. So Library Juice has these, these academies and these different courses you can take that, granted you have to pay for, but they do give continuing education as well. But yeah, if you want to learn more about this stuff. I know that, I'm just trying to think, because I know that sometimes, other places have free webinars. And as far as books, yeah, and Christine, I agree that the digest may be best. As far as books, I mean, I'd have to look into that. Like I said, these are probably, like I said, this Karen Coyle, which I guess in a sense is a book. It's kind of a very, very thin book. But I would recommend that one, this first one. That's about what I've just been talking about. So I highly recommend this first one, this Karen Coyle 2010, Understanding the Semantic Web. If you're looking for books, that's and this other one. So like I said, these are all good free sources, or at least some of these are free verses, maybe not all of them, to look into this further. And yes, Nancy, you will have access to my slides after this presentation. I believe they'll send out my slides to you guys after this. Hold on, I want to make sure that I'm seeing all the questions. Okay, let's see here. So, but yes, you'll get access to my slides as well. So, but if you do want to read further into this, especially for those of you who don't have a technology or computer science background, like I said, I tried to pick out sources here that I feel would really speak more to you. If you do want to get into the more technological aspects of this, great, more power to you. But you may want to look at the World Wide Web Consortium website. Hold on, I think it's just w3.org. Yeah, this I didn't include this just because this can get a bit overwhelming for those of us who are not computer scientists. The W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, also has a lot of resources you can use to look into these ideas further. So, yeah. So Christine, good. It is good if you can understand everything that they're talking about. That it is good. But I know that some of you guys, you might not be quite ready for that quite yet. So, but yeah, look into that if you feel kind of more comfortable delving deeper into this. So, okay. Okay, then Christine, then you are you are good. So yeah, if you have an IT degree, then this should hopefully this should be pretty easy for you to grasp, I would think. But yeah, many of us are not quite as good at that. So anyway, so any other questions about what I've talked about today? Anything that you'd like me to clarify further? Anything? Okay. You may just be kind of in stunned silence right now. You're just like, oh my God, I can't take it in. In which case, that's fine. You may just need some time to digest, and that's fine. So, all right, then. Okay, if there's nothing else, then I guess Luli, I'm assuming you're still around. Luli, are you there?
Yes, I
okay.
am. Dr. Snow, thank you for
okay, and would you be able to answer that question about where the face-to-face full-day session will be?
Yes. Yes. Is that the only question on the table at the moment?
Well, that's the only, I guess, outstanding question, the one that I was not able to answer. So.
Okay. No, we just wanted to thank you, Dr. Snow, for the wonderful webinar. We're lucky that you were able to participate in this learning opportunity. Everybody else, thank you. Great information and a sneak peek of what's coming up. As Dr. Snow said, remember that this is the third in a series of 4 RDA session webinars that are going to bring you to that common place of knowledge for the face-to-face. The face-to-face is going to be on May 8th, 2014. We will be putting up final location and date for that date soon. We have had an offer from one of our members to have it. It will be in Lee County. I can tell you that for sure. More than likely, it will be here in the Swiftland office that we have moved to in October. Many of the people in the Swiftland area know where that office is. The address is 13120 West Lakes Terrace in Fort Myers. For those of you that are out of town and want to make the trek across the state or down the state or up the state, we enjoy having you come across, and we welcome you with open arms. This is a very important topic, and more than likely it will be in the Swiftland office, which is pretty much central Lee County, close to the southern people and not so close to the way northern people, but within an hour's drive. And we hope that you'll be able to join us. We will be sending you as well your certificates via email for attendance today. We will also be sending you a PDF of this recording of the webinar. And you will also be receiving your immediate reaction survey from Swiftland. Does anyone else have any questions that I can answer? I see people are typing. Oh, Brian, thank
Okay,
you.
and Luli, I'll send you an updated. I needed to make some corrections on the slide. There are a couple mistakes, so I'm going to send you the updated slides here in just a second, so that you can then send them out to everyone. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Anybody else have any? Our webinar, the next webinar is again Friday, February 28th. Mark, Big Frame, and their relationship to RDA. You see it right on the screen right now. It's up on our registration system for anyone who would like to register. And with that, you can exit the room if nobody has any additional questions. I will stay on, but don't feel off. Thank you, Kent, for the applause.
Oh, there was applause.
Kent G and Susan, who, oh, he's not clapping anymore.
It's okay. Okay, there, I see. Okay, Darmi's I think other people, yeah, thank you. Thank you. It was really great. You guys had some good questions, and yeah, I'll see you guys next month.